Okay, let's unpack this. We are diving deep into, I think, a really pivotal evening. One single night that feels like a major inflection point in a modern Hollywood career. We're talking about Variety's Power of Women event, Los Angeles, October 29, 2025. And specifically, we're zoning in on the recognition of Sydney Sweeney.
Yeah, that event, that specific date, it's absolutely crucial if you want to understand where her career is right now. And like you said, it wasn't just, a dinner party. It felt much more like a carefully crafted public statement.
Exactly.
It really captured an actress who was moving past that rising star label,
Yeah.
and properly cementing herself as a real cultural force. Her whole appearance that night, it felt strategic. It brought together her recent film choices, her business moves, which are pretty sharp, a very deliberate fashion statement that caused quite a stir.
Oh, yeah.
And her clearest statement yet on philanthropy, all of it converging, like literally 1 week before Christie hit theaters.
And that convergence is exactly what we need to pull apart today. That's our mission, really, to figure out the most important insights from that moment. We need to dissect how her role as an actress-producer, which is still pretty new, and the controversies that always seem to follow her aesthetic choices, plus her decision to advocate for something so specific and, frankly, heavy, how all that landed on the same stage, and maybe even amplified each other.
Absolutely. It's about understanding the mechanics, isn't it?
Right.
How a young career takes all that momentum and solidifies it into something, well, lasting, something meaningful.
Right.
And you can't understand the impact without understanding the event itself. The Power of Women event, usually at Beverly Hills Hotel, right? It's designed specifically to connect professional achievement, the box office numbers, the awards buzz, with genuine philanthropic work.
That connection is key.
And Sweeney, she was the youngest honoree that night, which is significant. She was sharing the stage with some real heavy hitters, established industry figures.
Yeah, that really sets the bar high, doesn't it? Being 28, and you're not just seen as a peer, but you're kind of representing the new guard.
Honored alongside Jamie Lee Curtis, Kate Hudson, Nicole Scherzinger, Wanda Sykes. I mean, when Variety puts you in that group, they're basically saying, okay, it's not just about what you're doing now. We see future power here.
Precisely. And what made Sweeney's selection really resonate, I think, was how specific her charitable focus was. The National Center on Domestic and Sexual Violence. It wasn't just a general good cause, it felt very intentional. A choice that linked directly back to the themes and, frankly, the intense physical work she was doing for her upcoming film, Christie, where she plays Christy Martin.
Boxer, right.
Yeah. So her being honored wasn't just about applause, it felt like a declaration. Like, okay, my art is now going to be the vehicle for my social mission. Okay, so let's start by really establishing the weight of this event, the Power of Women context, because it does have this history, this kind of gravitas. It's always framed as recognizing influence that goes beyond just, making movies. It asks that question, what are you actually doing with your platform?
Yeah, it really functions as this important space for acknowledging female achievement, but in a way that transcends the usual Hollywood metrics like profit margins or TV ratings. It's a platform for prominent women to really articulate their main advocacy goals. It shows the industry and the global media watching how celebrity influence can be consciously used for broader social impact, maybe even systemic change. It's an evening that's all about linking visibility, wealth, and genuine commitment.
And the structure of the night seems to reinforce that, too. You had Eliza Schlesinger hosting, but the focus wasn't really on slick production. It felt more about the personal acceptance speeches, those moments of intergenerational connection.
Right.
Like Octavia Spencer presenting to Kate Hudson. That feels significant, like a passing of the torch between these powerhouses.
And what really stands out when you look at the whole program is just the caliber, the seriousness of the causes that the honorees were highlighting. To really get why Sweeney's platform mattered, you have to see who she was standing alongside and the weight of their commitments. That defines the level of engagement Variety's actually celebrating here.
Okay, let's break those down then. Starting with Jamie Lee Curtis, presented by Melanie Griffith, and she was advocating for Children's Hospital Los Angeles, and her remarks sounded incredibly passionate about the real practical challenges the hospital was facing.
Yeah, Curtis didn't just speak in generalities. She talked specifically about severe funding cuts, painful cuts to essential programs. And she also tackled the challenges coming from increased ICE raids in the LA area. And what's important to understand there is how that ICE activity creates this huge fear among vulnerable immigrant families. It discourages them from seeking vital medical care for their kids, even life-saving care, no matter how sick the child is. That's advocacy hitting real-world systemic barriers head-on.
Wow. Okay, that immediately sets a really urgent tone for the evening. Then you had Kate Hudson, presented by Octavia Spencer. Her focus was the UN World Food Program.
With Hudson, the emphasis was maybe less on the logistics of food delivery itself and more on the philosophical importance of storytelling. Using platforms like hers to amplify marginalized voices around the world, she really stressed how awareness and narrative can motivate global action, especially when it comes to nurturing kids' potential and providing stability through nutrition.
And Nicole Scherzinger, Eva Longoria, presented to her. She highlighted the determination of Special Olympics athletes, sharing her commitment to acknowledging their spirit, breaking down those sort of preconceived ideas about ability.
And Wanda Sykes, presented by the legendary Jane Fonda. Sykes used her platform, her comedy, her social commentary to draw attention to the Ruth Ellis Center. That's a safe haven for vulnerable LGBTQ+ youth. Sykes specifically talked about how shifting government policies impact these already marginalized groups, drawing a direct line from legislation to the stability of people seeking refuge.
So when Sydney Sweeney, the youngest one there, steps up, she's not just getting an award, she's weaving her own story into this very serious tapestry of using celebrity for impact.
Exactly. And her choice, the National Center on Domestic and Sexual Violence, it carried exceptional weight because it was so specifically immediately relevant. That crucial link, which really elevated her selection from just, good job to intentional, was how it mirrored her personal and professional engagement with the themes in Christie. Dedicating her platform to a cause so deeply connected to the central trauma in that film, it established that her art and her advocacy weren't just running side by side. They were tied together. One powerful message.
That kind of intentionality, that feels like the absolute key here. It sends this powerful signal, right, to the industry, to the audience, that her career choices are actively shaping her philanthropy, creating this cohesive and really personal message. But maybe the most immediate thing she did that night, the thing that grabbed everyone's attention first and kind of paved the way for her message, happened before she even spoke, right there on the red carpet. And here's where it gets really interesting. Because that Christian Cowan gown, it caused an instant, massive media storm, sparked intense debate, and, let's be honest, a fair bit of controversy.
Oh, absolutely. That dress was way more than just clothes. It was a very deliberate statement about aesthetic power. It was designed, I think, to start a cultural conversation. It immediately framed the red carpet, even at an advocacy event like this, as a space for art that pushes boundaries. And that created this immense friction, right, between the high glamour and the event's underlying message of serious female influence.
Let's get into the design itself, because the craftsmanship alone tells you something about the commitment to this look. This wasn't off the rack. Custom design, Christian Cowan Spring-Summer 2026 collection. It was a technical feat, apparently.
It really was, and the amount of work involved just highlights the intent behind it. It was handmade. It took 6 painstaking weeks. And you have to credit the emerging talent, too. Elias Manso, a 23-year-old designer, executed it under Cowan's guidance. So this wasn't just styling, it was more like an artistic commission. It underscored the seriousness of the presentation.
The construction details kind of explain why it looked so striking, so architectural. It was crystal mesh. Thousands of hand-applied crystals, layered over a steel-boned corset. That structure underneath, that's what gave it that distinct sculptural shape. Made it look rigid, but somehow still flowing.
And that combination, that's where the symbolism comes in, I think. The dress had this very distinctive t-shirt silhouette, which is usually, casual, maybe even a bit masculine, simple. But here, rendered in extreme high glamour, you had this structured, ruched bodice, the wide sleeves, the slashed neckline, ribbon details at the back, and crucially, the extreme sheerness of the crystal mesh, offering only the bare minimum coverage underneath all the sparkle. That's exactly what drove the intense discussion and the criticism.
That boldness definitely led to a polarized reaction. Huge split in commentary. On one side, the fashion world was basically throwing roses at it, saw it as sophisticated boundary pushing.
Yeah, the descriptions were pretty over the top. People online calling it one of the prettiest dresses I've ever seen. Critics comparing her to Marilyn Monroe 2.0. I mean, it undeniably grabbed the attention of every major fashion house. It cemented her as this high-risk, high-reward figure on the red carpet. So mission accomplished in terms of visibility. Absolutely stunning clarity on that front.
But at the same exact time, the transparency, the sheer physicality of it, that immediately created critical tension. The main argument you saw online was about appropriateness, right? Did a look this bold, this revealing, emphasizing her figure so dramatically, did it actually align with the event's focus? Female empowerment, serious social advocacy. Did the focus on the look distract from the purpose, or worse, detract from it?
And that tension, I think that's the single most important thing to take away from that fashion moment. It forced people to grapple with this persistent cultural double standard. Can a woman be taken seriously as an intellectual, as an activist, if she also embraces and, frankly, monetizes extreme glamour and sexuality? The debate wasn't just about the dress being sheer. It was about the complex, often contradictory expectations we place on successful young women in the public eye. When women advocate for serious causes, society often expects them to look solemn, right? And this look was definitely not solemn. It was powerful, confident, and very overtly physical.
It almost feels like she used the controversy, like maybe it was a calculated risk. She knew the design would demand attention, and she used that guaranteed media spotlight to make sure that every article talking about the scandalous dress also had to mention the National Center on Domestic and Sexual Violence.
That's a very tactical way to read it, yeah. And despite all the debate, her overall presentation was just undeniably confident, sophisticated, calculated styling. The choices she made, minimal diamond earrings, multiple rings, neutral makeup, but with that pop of silver eyeliner, debuting the platinum blonde bob, it all added up to a look that was polished, mature, and demanded attention. She made sure the conversation started with visibility, which maybe allowed her words later on the podium to land with even more weight.
So the fashion wasn't a distraction, it was a lever.
It felt like a strategic asset. Leveraging that cultural fascination we have with celebrity looks to guarantee airtime for her message. That right there is a demonstration of power in today's media landscape.
Okay, moving from the dress debate to the actual presentation. The person who gave her the award, that felt incredibly significant too. Sharon Stone.
Absolutely. Stone, she's 67 now, right? Decades of experience navigating Hollywood's intense focus on female beauty, aging, power. Her being there symbolized this really crucial link between generations of actresses. And it felt particularly resonant because Stone is co-starring with Sweeney in the final season of Euphoria, the big finale.
Yeah.
So she wasn't just some random presenter. She felt like a mentor figure with a real professional connection.
And that professional tie-in made Stone's decision to address that other controversy, the really recent, really charged one involving Sweeney, feel incredibly personal, almost protective. We're talking about the huge public debate over the American Eagle jeans campaign from July 2025.
Right, that campaign. The slogan was Sydney's Great Jeans. And a lot of critics jumped on it, arguing it put this reductive emphasis on her physical attributes, specifically her figure. It sparked this furious online debate about the line between celebrating empowerment and just objectification. So Stone's presentation, in a way, became this spirited, kind of spontaneous, very public defense of Sweeney's autonomy, both professional and personal, right in that moment.
And Stone wasn't subtle about it at all. She went right at the criticism, delivered a line that instantly went viral. She said, straight up, "It's okay to use what mama gave you. It's really fine. It's hard to be hot."
Yeah, and it didn't feel like just a throwaway comment. Stone framed it as advice, based on her own hard-won experience.
Yeah.
She told Sweeney to use every bit of hotness you have right here, right now. She did acknowledge that every person has their own certain kind of hotness, but the underlying message was a direct challenge to the critics, the ones suggesting that using your physical appeal somehow makes you less serious intellectually or professionally. It felt like a clear generational pushback against this cultural paternalism about how young women should manage their public image.
Okay, but let me push back on that just a little bit. Isn't there a risk there that by leaning into the hotness defense, Sweeney and Stone validating it, doesn't that inadvertently confirm the original criticism of the American Eagle campaign, the shallow part? Doesn't it sort of reinforce the idea that her main asset is her appearance, which is exactly what an event like Power of Women is trying to move beyond?
That is the essential tension. And it's precisely what Stone was tackling, I think. She wasn't saying appearance is Sweeney's only asset. She seemed to be arguing that it's one asset she has the absolute right to leverage, without shame, without criticism, especially when she's building capital for her production company, for her art. And to really illustrate this nuance, Stone shared that fantastic anecdote about Jane Fonda. Really pragmatic.
Right, the story about Fonda wearing shorts on magazine covers back in the day.
Yeah. Exactly. Fonda, who's like a foundational figure in acting and activism, right? She got criticized for wearing shorts on covers when she was young. Stone recounted Fonda telling her that if her appearance and the magazine sales that came with it helped her raise money for her causes, for the research she cared about, then she was perfectly fine with the criticism. That anecdote just fundamentally reframes the whole issue, takes it from a question of morality to one of strategy, utilitarianism almost.
It's the ultimate pragmatic stance, isn't it? Using every tool you have to reach a higher goal, maybe a more enduring one. And Sweeney's response on stage seemed to really validate that idea of strategic autonomy.
It did. She apparently acknowledged making substantial money from that campaign and said she was comfortable with it, recognizing that financial leverage, that visibility, they're foundational.
Right.
They help secure future opportunities like funding her own films through 50/50. This whole exchange is so important for analysis because it really addressed those complex, often contradictory expectations put on female celebrities today. The fundamental discomfort society seems to have is watching a serious actress, a producer, intentionally and autonomously use her public presence, including her highly scrutinized looks for financial and visible leverage. Stone, in that moment, basically validated Sweeney's choice to own her brand, own her body, regardless of what critics were saying.
So the conversation shifted. It went from, is she being objectified, which kind of removes her agency, to, is she choosing how to be visible and using that visibility strategically?
That's the core difference, I think. It forces us to see that power in modern Hollywood is, well, it's multifaceted. It's not just about turning down roles that exploit women anymore. It's maybe about choosing how and when to leverage every single asset you have, your skill, your beauty, your intelligence, your business sense, to build the kind of career that gives you real creative control. Because only then, once you have that control, can you really advocate meaningfully and direct resources effectively. Stone essentially told her, don't let anyone else set the terms of your power.
Okay, now let's get to the artistic anchor of that whole evening. The Power of Women event happened just 1 week before Christie was released theatrically. The sports drama where Sydney Sweeney plays the legendary boxer Christy Martin. This film was the direct, visceral link between her art and her advocacy choice.
And the level of commitment Sweeney showed for this role, it fundamentally shifted perceptions of her seriousness as an actress. This wasn't just, prepping for a character. It was a profound physical transformation, way beyond the usual celebrity fitness stuff.
Let's focus on that physical dedication for a second, because the numbers are pretty remarkable. She went through this intense, apparently often painful physical change for the role, gained over 13.5 kilograms, that's nearly 30 pounds of muscle, and it required 3.5 months of really intensive, non-stop boxing training, not just lifting weights in a gym, but training like an actual professional fighter.
Yeah, and she talked about it in really visceral terms, candidly. Said her body became almost unrecognizable, even to herself. She mentioned her jean size went from a 23 up to a 27, just due to the increased muscle, the physical density. So this isn't just about gaining weight. It's about committing to embody the sheer physicality, the resilience required of a top-level athlete. And that physical transformation, it provides crucial context for the emotional weight she brought to her acceptance speech. She literally reshaped her body to honor the struggle of her subject.
And to understand the role's depth, we really need to look at the true story of Christy Martin. The coal miner's daughter, right? A genuine pioneer in women's professional boxing, often fighting when the sport was barely even sanctioned or respected for women.
Her pro career was groundbreaking, absolutely. But the pivotal narrative point of the movie and the tragic core of her later advocacy work centers on that horrific incident in 2010. Martin was nearly killed by her then-husband and trainer, Jim Martin. He stabbed her multiple times, shot her, inside their home in Florida. Her survival, her escape, her recovery, and then her testimony that led to his conviction. That whole traumatic event became central to her life's work as an advocate for survivors. The film and Sweeney's performance had to grapple directly with that incredibly complex story of abuse, survival, and finding justice.
And this is where that thematic resonance just becomes undeniable. The film explored domestic violence, complicated abusive relationships, and later in Martin's life, her journey with her LGBTQ+ identity. All these incredibly difficult themes directly inform Sweeney's choice of charity for the Power of Women event, the National Center on Domestic and Sexual Violence.
In her acceptance speech, she steered clear of melodrama, but she made the connection deeply explicit. She stated her commitment to the cause was very personal, and she didn't feel the need to elaborate further, which can often feel invasive anyway. That kind of powerful vagueness, it actually amplified the weight of her commitment, I thought. It gave the audience the sense that her advocacy came from a place of real, deep emotional understanding.
And her core message really resonated, didn't it? Not just with Christy Martin's experience, but probably with a lot of women in industries where they constantly have to fight to be taken seriously. He said, I understand the sensation of being underestimated, of having others define you before you have a chance to define yourself.
That line is the anchor, isn't it? To have others define you before you've had the chance to define yourself. It connects the boxer's fight for basic recognition in a male-dominated sport directly to Sweeney's own journey, navigating this highly scrutinizing, often reductive Hollywood system. She talked about having to prove that you deserve to be here to be seen and to be taken seriously.
Yeah.
And that's the common thread, right? Whether you're a female boxer fighting for a sanction or a young producer fighting for creative control, the battle for professional legitimacy often involves pushing back against how others want to define you.
And the final, really powerful act was dedicating the award not just to her own success, but specifically to Christy Martin herself, honoring her resilience, her survival, her advocacy. It felt like a very conscious choice to link her celebrity platform directly to a specific living survivor and her ongoing work.
And we have to look at how the performance itself was received, because that context really validated the recognition she was getting. Christie premiered at TIFF, right? And while the film overall got mixed reviews, Metacritic had it at 56, Rotten Tomatoes around 69%. The critical consensus pretty much across the board hailed Sweeney's performance as genuinely transformative. They often praised her even when they had issues with the film itself.
Yeah, the critics seemed unanimous about her commitment, praising her ability to just disappear into the role, to ground a mythic genre in raw, personal storytelling. It immediately cemented her reputation as an actress willing to take on these physically tough, emotionally complex, artistically serious roles. It effectively silenced, or at least quieted, the critics who argued her fame was just based on her TV work.
And you could see the industry recognition responding directly to that commitment. This Power of Women award came just 2 days after she won the Spotlight Award at the Savannah Film Festival for the same role. And it came before the announced Virtuoso Award at the Santa Barbara International Film Festival, which is coming up early next year. That trajectory clearly shows the industry was actively rewarding her serious artistic commitment to the subject and her willingness to physically transform for a role.
So this Power of Women recognition at 28, it really feels like the culmination of this phenomenal and highly strategic career arc. Let's just trace that path for a second. From guest star to this global honoree status, she moved to LA when she was just 13, right? Pursue acting. Took on those early guest roles in shows like Heroes, Criminal Minds, 90210, Pretty Little Liars. That period of grinding it out, that established a work ethic that's clearly paying off now.
That early period is so critical, I think. It shows this commitment to the craft, to the industry hustle, that people often forget when they only see the success at the end. But her real breakthrough, yeah, that was Euphoria. She started filming the pilot when she was 20. Her role as Cassie Howard, that earned her huge acclaim, 2 Emmy nominations. It positioned her as someone who could play these deeply flawed, emotionally complex, often incredibly vulnerable characters. And that success was followed almost immediately by more critical praise for The White Lotus, and then massive commercial success with Anyone But You. She proved she had range, critical appeal, and box office draw.
But the crucial pivot, I think, the defining part of her power archetype now, isn't just the roles she picked, it's the structures she's building around them. We're talking about 50/50 Films, her production company.
That move is the absolute modern blueprint for sustained influence and autonomy in Hollywood. Setting up her own production company gave her creative control over the projects she wanted to pursue. And critically, it also allows her to generate back-end profits, to secure ownership of the intellectual property. She positioned herself not just as an actress waiting for scripts, but as this proactive, modern actress-producer, someone capable of generating content, directing the narrative of her own career, and making real business decisions.
Can we dig into the strategy of 50/50 Films a bit more? Because it's more than just a name on a shingle, right? What kind of projects show this drive for control?
Oh, it's absolutely strategic. Production companies like hers, they're looking for projects that let the actress move beyond just being talent for hire. Often that means finding material based on books, short stories, true crime stories, things where she can take the lead in developing the script, securing the director, the cast. It ensures the material she works on is specifically tailored to her interests, her strengths, her long-term brand strategy. The power isn't just picking scripts, it's creating the scripts she wants to make, controlling the quality, the themes of her work. which, as we've seen, feeds directly back into her advocacy narrative.
Speaking of narratives, the Euphoria era that really defined her 20s is coming to an end. That was a key part of her reflection at the Power of Women event, too. Season 3 is officially the last one, scheduled for spring 2026, I think.
Yeah, and the emotional weight of that ending felt very real. Sweeney mentioned the show had basically been my entire 20s. Started filming at 20, wrapped at 28. That's a full cycle, professionally and personally. Moving on from a role that defined you is always tough, but it's essential if you want to reach that next level of legitimacy.
And she gave us a pretty fascinating little tease about Cassie's fate, didn't she? Signaled that the character isn't just going to fade away quietly. She revealed season 3 will have Cassie in increasingly unhinged situations, pushing her towards dramatic extremes.
Which is kind of the perfect creative way to cap it off, right?
Yeah.
It ensures her final performance in the role that made her famous will be memorable, challenging. Just like her new dramatic work, it lets her transition to her next, even more ambitious slate of producer-led projects with a really high-impact send-off. Her future path seems entirely about leveraging that producer status, leveraging the creative capital she's built.
And the most talked about future project that really shows this leverage is the Barbarella remake for Sony. She's not just starring, she's executive producing.
That is such a calculated, legacy-conscious move. By taking on Barbarella, she's deliberately connecting herself to these foundational figures of female power in Hollywood, specifically Jane Fonda, who starred in the original. It shows Sweeney isn't just picking high-profile roles, she's consciously curating her own professional mythology, aligning herself with iconic female characters, but crucially, securing the executive control to make sure the film's vision matches her own. It's a statement that her career is built on honoring, but also maybe revising those female legacies.
And finally, underpinning all that artistic and strategic power is undeniable financial leverage. There are reports suggesting she commanded a $7.5 million salary for her role in The Housemaid.
That number is significant, not just because it's a lot of money for her personally, but because it represents real financial bargaining power. That kind of salary solidifies her position among the most valuable, bankable actresses working today. And financial leverage, at the end of the day, is often the ultimate form of creative control in Hollywood. It backs up her artistic recognition, her philanthropic work, by ensuring that when she walks into a negotiation, she holds the power. Power to make demands for creative input, for ownership, and critically, for the type of advocacy work she wants to connect to her film choices.
So, her recognition at the Power of Women event felt like the industry formally acknowledging all of that she successfully converted critical acclaim, strategic visibility, even controversy, into real industry bargaining power. Genuine creative authority. She successfully pulled all the levers: the art, the business, the moral platform. So when you put it all together, synthesize this one moment in time. Sydney Sweeney's recognition really was this perfect convergence. You had her business savvy with 50-50 films, her commitment to transformative acting shown in Christie, and her immediate, very personal advocacy for survivors of domestic violence. She's actively using her platform, informed directly by the tough artistic choices she made, to speak out for real social change, even when those choices themselves stir up controversy.
Yeah, and if you connect that to the bigger picture, Sweeney's whole appearance that night, her ability to command intense debate over a super daring dress, while at the same time dedicating her award to a survivor of violence and linking that cause directly to her film role, it really suggests a new, maybe more complex archetype of female influence in Hollywood. It shows that celebrity power today isn't just measured by box office. It's measured by this complex ability to weave together your art, your personal brand, and meaningful social engagement. Even when those different threads seem to contradict each other, she embodies a power that's strategic, glamorous, and relentlessly serious, all at the same time.
She refuses to be put in one box.
Yeah.
Embracing that complexity, and pretty unapologetically, too.
And that brings us to a final thought, something for you, the listener, to maybe mull over. Considering the criticism she faced about her appearance, the American Eagle thing, the debate over the cow and gown, and then Sharon Stone's really spirited defense, what assumptions do you think Hollywood, and maybe the wider media, still struggles to shed when we try to define what a truly powerful woman looks like in the 21st century? Is that demand for solemnity when you're advocating for something serious? Is that still an expectation that powerful women have to strategically navigate or exploit? Or should they just be free of it entirely?